Okay, thank you. Well, good morning. I'm going to share with you some of the goals, understandings, essential questions, and some evidence that I would like to obtain in this course that I'm teaching right now. It's non-parametric statistics. It's for the ninth semester of the educational program, statistical engineer program. So I write down these two goals for the entire course, that a student will perform non-parametric statistic hypothesis test, build non-parametric models, and interpret the results with emphasis on the wide applicability in engineering and service. And students will communicate the results in English. Those goals are in the syllabus and was approved by the academy. The understanding I proposed is students will understand that non-parametric statistic analysis is based on free distribution of the variables, and non-parametric methods give a solution based on characteristics related to engineering and service problems, and when these variables do not follow parametric methods assumptions. The essential question, what types of variables scales are considered in the non-parametric statistics? How effective are these methods? How can be modeled the behavior of variables in engineering problems that do not follow a normal probability distribution? And trying to relate these essential questions, I pose this content and skill-based objective, but thinking about a performance task. A student will know that Kaplan-Meier estimator of survival function, logistic regression to model the success probability of an event, non-parametric test to compare and or contrast two or more population. A student will be able to use the Kaplan-Meier estimator to estimate the survival function of products or service under different conditions, interpret a logic regression model regarding to the probability that a specific product or service continue to work after a given time, and compare or contrast summary statistics of engineering characteristics between two different manufacturers through non-parametric test. The evidence that I propose are quizzes, hypothetical problem solution, thinking about what we say, maybe I have to think about the second one. Oral presentation in English written technical report, and performance task. That's the evidence in well, as we say, for the record, the student right now, they are doing the performance task for the final project.
Okay. Any comments, questions, or suggestions for us?
So, what will be the performance test that you will apply to?
Well, the performance task, I got it right here.
Just so happens.
Let me check which folder.
Because you're already applying it, correct?
Yeah, they are collecting the information, but yeah, I would like to. Right here is the last one. Sorry, right here. Let me see. they have the goal is they form groups of at least four students, and they are right, they are like a statistical advisor for a company that produce these LEDs pieces. I don't know where, maybe I forgot over there, yeah. And they have to propose through a experiment which combination of raw materials in order to produce these LEDs, in order that these LEDs, the foquitos, no, the LEDs, last the longest. So each team has to follow a specific experiment that I give some specification about the concentration of the material, maybe 1%, 2% of these, blah, blah, etc. Through, I mean, in a specific environment. They have to fix all their variables because they don't have the chance in order to produce these items different as, I mean, as they how do you say, as they will, because the consumer, the person who buy these products need some specification. So then each team has to present the best design in order to get this goal, to satisfy the consumer needs, and they have to apply non-parametric statistics in order to give a solution. And at the end, they have to write a technical report, do an oral presentation, all in English.
Okay. So the evidence that you will have is at the end is
the technical report and the presentation. Yep. Exactly.
Both.
Both. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or suggestions?
What kind of pieces are you going to apply?
Well, through the course in each unit, I post like maybe 30 to 60 questions regarding to the key concepts, or maybe they have to do easy calculation. And I posted in the platform, in the model, and they have to answer these questions as many times as they want before. Why? Before the test, because I choose randomly. I choose maybe if there is 60 questions, I choose 20.
Okay.
And each student has a different.
So you are posting
different questions.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
You are posting like a bank of questions.
Yes.
So they can practice, and
Exactly.
from those questions you choose some of them,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
apply to them. Okay.
Yeah, because I think they can improve their understanding about the topic, and they came and asked me, I don't understand what, and sometimes it's also a feedback for me, because sometimes I write wrongly the question or the answer.
So those are open questions.
No, closed.
Those questions.
Yeah, for example, when I say, okay, you have a sample of the weight of this product. So you have five numbers. Which is the mean? Which is the mean of this, for example? But the numbers are random. Yeah. Yeah. That's the quizzes.
And do you post the questions gradually during the course, or just once per month, or at the beginning of the course? Or
No.
when do you post the questions?
Mm,
Gradually?
yeah, maybe 2 weeks before the test, the each test.
Each partial test?
Yeah, each partial.
Mm, My doubts are about your essential questions. I don't understand very well.
Okay.
For example, for the first one, what is the answer that you expect?
Okay. Well, the students already took the parametric methods, and they know very well what kind of variables they can study in order to do statistical test in parametric view. But for no parametric is a little bit more wide. The types of variables are more wide in order to solve specific problems. Like, for example, with parametric statistics, there is no statistic test to solve or to answer a hypothetical question about the linker scale. I don't know if you Likert scale, yeah. But in non-parametric there is an option. So that when they have this kind of variables like ordinal variable, nominal variable, or there is an option in this no parametric statistics. That's why what type of variables scales? Oh, every scale.
And how they are going to measure the effectiveness of your non-parametric methods?
Okay. Well, this is a technical question, but let's say. Well, I think there is a formula in order to calculate the how effective is this method in contrast with the parametric method. So I don't know if you remember the significance level of the test. The significant level of the test, or is the probability that you reject an hypothesis when this hypothesis is true. So in non-parametric method, you can do like a simulation, a lot of samples, and you see if you reject what proportion of the time you do this exercise you reject that hypothesis, knowing that this hypothesis is true, compared with the it's more or less like that. Yeah. And maybe the last one, in most of the engineering problems, there are variables that don't follow the normal distribution. So if there is normal, you just calculate a confidence interval, and that's it. But when there is no symmetry, the normal is symmetric distribution. What happens if this distribution is not symmetric? How you going to calculate those limits? So in no parametric method, you can do that. And this is the goal, the main goal of the course.
Anything else, Ramon or Luis?
And the third one is about random variables.
Sorry, what?
About random variables.
Which in what?
Because in engineering you have many other kind of variables that are not random.
No, every variable is considered, well, in this case, as
And
random.
the point two,
The what?
and the zero essential question.
The third one?
Yeah, you speak about variables in engineering problems.
Yeah.
I suppose that you talk about random variables.
Yeah, in the probabilistic sense, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Because
also,
there are many deterministic that are variables
but
in
then,
engineering problems.
yeah, well, when I say variables, engineering is characteristic, like the time that the time life of
Any random variable, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking too about the essential questions, specifically the first and second, and I think they're good questions. I'm wondering, again, not being an expert in this area, but thinking, starting with number 2, you mentioned about how effective are these non-parametric methods, and I don't know if there's a relationship between the effectiveness of the non-parametric method and something else, like the significance test, or some other variable or something. If there is some sort of relationship, if the effectiveness of a non-parametric method depends on something else, you could create a question that articulates that relationship, or that understanding of, yes, some are more effective than others, but why? Based on something else? Presumably, I would presume it's based on something else. So if you could create a question that shows, okay, I need to know which parametric method is best given this type of this knowledge or whatever, some other variable. So that might be another way of having this essential question. When I look at essential questions, now this is not always the case. You can have closed questions for essential questions.
Okay.
But which I consider number 1 and number 2 to be a closed question, because it's how effective are, okay, this one's effective. And I think the question you're asking in number 2 is what I'm proposing, because I'm assuming the students are going to have to say, okay, this parametric, a non-parametric or parametric method is effective when, in this case, right, in this situation. This test is good in this type of situation. So maybe the end result is the same, but I think if you put it in the question, it might be clear for them, okay, this, I need to know why maybe some of these methods are better. And then the first question, what types of variable scales are considered in non-parametric statistics? This is another example of a closed question that I think if you change it a little bit to make it an open question, it might be another way of looking at it. So here the answer would be, what types of variable scales are considered? Here's the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the answers to the essential question. There's probably no wrong, there's probably only right answers, no? There's probably no wrong answers, correct?
Yes.
I mean, so typically essential questions are ones that don't necessarily have one correct answer. This question that you asked is probably a very important question that you're going to bring up in the class. And they're going to have to answer that question. but it might be in part of a larger question that might be more interpretive and offer the students to share different perspectives that all might be, you know, legitimate, correct, possible, and it might stimulate deeper conversations, because that is really the goal of essential questions, to drive this conversation. If the students already know what the types of variables are, or variable scales, that's end of discussion, right? There's nothing more to talk about. Whereas essential question really tries to encourage a continuation of discussion beyond just maybe having one right answer. So
do you mean that the essential question should be made in a way that they promote like further discussion?
yeah, I kind of look at it like that, right? And
Because I thought that the essential question was, I mean, a really specific question. But I mean, if I want to promote like a further discussion, I need to be not so specific in the question. I need to be more like a general, maybe asking about an opinion about an aspect of the disease or something, not about the fact. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, and essential questions are not factual questions.
Okay.
And to answer your question, yeah, they're not really super specific questions. And for me, number one is kind of a specific question. Very important. That's not to say, of course, we're going to ask this question, but it's part of a bigger question. And the essential question is that bigger question, it's that big idea. It's that maybe even a contextual type of question where in this context, there's a legitimate answer. In another context, the same thing, but in a different context, there's another possibility, right? And so that's how I typically look at essential questions, is because you want to generate thought. It's almost, think about it back when we did the Socratic method, or the Socratic seminars. Essential questions are perfect to start to begin a discussion, a Socratic seminar. Of course, there's going to be other questions that lead into it and more specific or whatever, but the essential question really is to start that conversation with the understanding that there are different perspectives. And right, because just imagine when the students already know that answer, well, they're on to something else. They're not thinking about it anymore. And so really think about what's at the heart of this question. Why would someone need to even know the different types of variable scales in considering this, right? And maybe that's part of a larger question that you might consider there.
Okay.
All right. So the English written technical report, you mentioned that is part of the performance test?
Yes.
Or is it separate?
No, it's part of the.
Okay, it's part of it. And the oral presentation, is that part of the performance
Yes.
test?
Also.
And what about the hypothetical problem solving?
Excuse me.
I see you.
Well, when I give the students the assignment, I usually give them a specific context, and then I post 3 or 4 questions about, for example, in car production, there is two lines or 3 or 4. Let's think only this company has two lines. So they have to do the product with the same specification. But the hypothetical question is really the length or the weight or any other characteristic for the article, the items that is done in this line is the same in this line. Or we say the variation of this item must weight 3 grams because the consumer or the consumer need this specification. So how how is the variation in this line about this point and about this point? Is the same variation, or this is more than this? Some kind of that question.
All right, so the other thing I would suggest, because in the type of evidence, number 1 through 5, well, I should say 1, 3, and 4 for me are very clear in what kind of product that you would be asking your students, and because 3 and 4 is part of 5, for me, number 5 would also is clear for me what the product is. Number 2, you might state something about what kind of product that you would expect. Because for me, this is a little bit more related to the process. So this is a hypothetical problem solution. So the process for me is really clear. Just make sure it's clear for you what kind of product you might want to do. The oral presentation, it's not really clear what the process is, but I can imagine it either you telling them or they deciding how to develop the presentation. Same way with the written technical report, there's probably a process and how they do the analysis and all of that you can talk about, but it's clear about the product. So make sure, and the quizzes, of course, that's a product. So just make sure that any type of evidence needs to be observable so that you have an idea about what it is. And when you're looking at all of the list of different types of evidence, this is why we're doing this too, is that you can kind of measure how much is going to be written, how much is going to be oral. So hopefully at the end of the day, there's some sort of mix between the two. So it's not all written, it's not all oral, but that there's a combination in some way of both of those skills. Since this is going to be an English class, that's another consideration when you're evaluating known evidence. And this is for a unit, right? This is going to be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long the unit is. And so it's over time, right? And it's not going to be one class and try to squeeze all of this in.
Exactly.
So yeah. Okay. Any other final thoughts? Comments?
No, maybe.
All right. I think we'll stop there if you don't mind, so we have enough time